Hi, welcome back everybody. We're going to do a little bit of Tai Chi today. We're going to be working on a couple of movements from the end of the third section. Now this was requested by Skylar, and one thing I'd like to say before we go into the work is these movements appear at the end of the sequence. They come at the end for a reason, all right? It's not that they're necessarily really physically hard or incredibly challenging conceptually, but kind of getting everything to fall into the right place and line up is a little bit challenging. It really means that you have to use your fundamentals of your practice very well. So we're just going to cover over a couple of things really quick in terms of some of those fundamental ideas you want to be focusing on and working towards before you go into these movements, and so you can come into them with a little bit of that clarity. Okay. So the very first thing that we always talk about is the alignment of that spine from the tip of the head to your tailbone. All right. It means we're working on suspension upward from the tip of our head, and we're settling down into those hips, into our seat bones here in our movement. We can utilize a Wu posture to practice this. All right? There are many different exercises and postures that sort of work out on this. You can come up with those hands right in front of the chest, right in front of that shoulder. Elbows relaxed, knees open. We're finding that balance point on your third point on your chair, on that point from your spine down to the ground. This is this point that you're looking to balance through. Okay. Don't want to hold too tight with those legs. You don't want to be too stiff with the body. You really want it to be almost like hanging from your head, falling through that point in your spine, your sacrum bone, downward, right? Cutting your muscle tone rather than bending your legs in order to go down, okay? So that's that first exercise, okay? This is a really valuable tool. I would say hold for maybe a minute at most, all right? You can go up to 5 minutes, right? Some people hold longer, but you really don't need to get the benefits from it, all right? If you feel your legs tighten up, if you feel your body stiffen up, you want to come back into a fully standing position, shake out those legs a little bit if you need to, right? Because you want to go into the motion with a really pliable lower body, okay? That's going to become important as we sink lower through the movements, okay? The next one we're going to work on is keeping that vertical line through the body as we transition weight from one leg to the other. Now, the way that you really transition that weight is by falling toward that leg. And when I say toward the leg, I don't mean toward the side that the leg is on, but I mean really down to the foot, all right? We're bringing it down, relaxing into that side, all right? So if I'm in my horse stance, and we're a little bit higher sitting than a lot of people practice their horse stance, I'm just going to let that muscle relax through here, allowing me to fall towards that leg. I don't really want to push myself through the motion. I'm really just relaxing through that leg and feeling myself float from one side to the other, looking to keep my ears over my shoulders and my shoulders over my hips. And you can do this as a walking exercise as well. It's your Tai Chi walking, turning the foot, shifting forward, and stepping through, okay? It'll look like this from that side view. Sitting, opening, shifting, stepping. I'm just falling toward my foot, allowing my front leg to be my point of support through my motion. So you can see with my rear leg, I am not pushing, I'm not pulling up with my hip, and I'm not overly stretching and then trying to snatch my leg back. But in a lot of ways, I'm actually sitting back through this front hip joint to glide through that motion. So finding that balance point is really important, really valuable in this practice, okay? So 2 exercises so far. We've got our Wu posture, we've got our Tai Chi walking, okay? And last one I think that we should really focus on is twisting, okay? You can do this if you have trouble differentiating between your hip and your waist. Sitting in a chair to anchor that hip and twisting can be really valuable, okay? The way that I like to work that waist twist is by moving into my horse stance and rotating, right? Hands to the center here is a good way to be clear about where you're turning from, okay? There's a lot of ways to convince yourself that you're rotating the same way, all right? So the first pitfall to watch for is turning with the hip, all right? You want to make sure you're not turning with the hip and make sure you're not dropping with the knee especially, okay? Especially that inward falling knee in that lateral motion can be really detrimental to your knee health, all right? The second thing we want to really look at here is making sure we're not pulling with the side of our body to one side, all right? You want to really rotate right through that midpoint. And that's where your hands connected to your center can become a valuable tool, because you're really just moving this bar right here between your two elbows, all right? You move that bar by rotating this middle point right here, okay? And that's what we're looking for, okay? Other way that we may deceive ourselves is by moving our hands away from our center. That's why I like to use my thumb, connect to the middle. And then lastly, we convince ourselves we're twisting by looking, okay? So if you keep the nose in line with your fingertips, your thumbs against your chest, and you're sitting, relaxing your hip, but keeping it stationary. And when you twist, your nose should still be down your fingers should still be in the center of your body, and your hips and your knees shouldn't have moved at all, okay? And this is really where we're identifying that twist. This becomes really important for Benbo Shoot Tiger, okay? So those would be the 3 first exercises I'd recommend warming up with and working through, okay? Now let's go on to talk a little bit about the 7-star and Benbo Shoot Tiger, okay? We'll start with 7-star. 7-star goes from a snake creeps down and moves up and through, okay? The most important thing or challenging thing about this exercise is the low to high movement, all right? You want to make sure your body's not really going from low and up, all right? It's more going forward than anything, all right? So if I give you that side view on this here, all right, we're coming in, opening down, covering through on that knee. I'm going to turn, pivot my front leg forward, and just glide forward. So my motion is more of this forward shooting through or jutting through motion, okay? As we talked about in that step earlier, that more fundamental Tai Chi walking, we really want that leg not to push us, all right? We don't want to have to pull it in to follow us in. We're really just letting it fall to that front, okay? So looking for the soft solution to the problem, okay? Once again, we're coming from our snake creeps down, turning the foot, okay. The front hand, there's many ways to do this crossing motion, and we'll talk about the 7 points that we're looking at here, okay? So some people cover and hit, all right? Some people just cross the arms, all right? Some people thrust through, all right? This is a little bit more what mine is like here. Once we come down, we come back up. This is making a fist, and this hand is shooting up and through, right? So almost like I'm grabbing and throwing this punch up through that space, okay? The 7 points, right? You have the 2 fists, all right? You have the cross, you have the elbows, all right? And you have the lower body parts here as well, okay? So you've got those 7 different points of connection, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? There's your 7 points coming forward, all right? Sometimes referred to as 7 star, all right? You can also think of 7 striking points, okay? So, let me do this a couple more times here. If you can't go all the way down in the motion, right, you don't need to, but you should still look for a smooth transition up and through, all right? Try not to catch yourself forward, all right? Try to come up into that place where you're sitting back through the movement, okay? One more time here. I'm going to sink down all the way once again, following it up. And that'll transition out into what we call riding the tiger, okay? If I face you, it'll look like this. Okay. Now, I just did it fairly quickly there, all right? Sometimes that can feel easier, especially when you think about the value of momentum bringing you through. But if you really want to get good at this, you want to take your time and go slowly. Really feel that transition so you're not overdoing it or, pushing yourself too far through the motion. All right, pushing yourself too far through the motion will look like this, right? Where I have to catch my weight with my front foot, all right? That front foot, really, if you're working in that optimal space, shouldn't have to catch you. You should already be just in a balanced spot. So this leg is free to move, to kick, to do whatever you need to with it, okay? All right, we'll go over one more exercise here before we close it up today. All right, we're gonna look at the bend bow, shoot tiger, right? This one's a little bit, this one is probably one that most people have a lot of difficulty seeing. And over video, I don't know how it will translate because quite honestly, the angles are funny in person already, all right? So this comes right after the lotus kick, all right? We're not gonna cover the lotus today, all right? But we're gonna talk about transitioning out, all right? And the way we're gonna do that is we're just going to open that hip and step back, letting the hands roll back through that motion to the other side. You want to end up in a forward stance and twisting back, okay? So there's a few things that you have to keep in mind is we're going from facing towards one corner to facing towards the other corner, all right? If I'm going this direction in my movement, I'm gonna go facing from this corner here to facing to this corner here, okay? When I talk about facing, I'm talking about your hip direction. So you want your hips facing to that corner. The right hand is going to flow up towards the temple in a fist, and you're going to twist back with the body. And this is where the value of twisting and understanding the difference between a waist twist and your hip placement or location is important. So I want my hips to continue facing the corner, all right, but I want my waist to twist back to this direction. My attack is really rounding that corner, okay, and this secondary hand is staying rather close to the body. I have a little bit of space between my elbow and my body, okay. But this arm here turns very little, while this one goes quite a ways. My right hand goes quite a ways around that turn. Okay. That's all really originating from that twist. Okay. You want to have this feeling of everything going forward or going out. You want to have a sensation of a connection between the two hands, almost like you're holding a stick between your two hands. All right. If you did this exercise with a stick, you would also be able to see that a little bit more clearly. All right. So with a stick, it's going to look like this. Okay. This is just a short little stick here. Okay. If I step back through, carry it up, right, and you can see that angle. This is the twist, okay? Depending on what level you want to work at, you can either turn that stick to face squarely to that side, or you can move it slightly back towards the opposite corner, okay? Main important thing is stay vertical with the body and twist from the waist, okay? And change the angle slightly. So my hips are now facing to this corner here and twisting, right? My weight is still forward on this leg. Nothing lower body moves, just my upper body, okay? So you can, if you have a short stick, you can practice with a stick, all right? Just to get the feel for that motion, make sure you're connected through. And then you can take it away and work empty-handed through that motion. All right. So this is kind of an obscure motion or an obscure movement. All right. I'm going to quickly, before I close up, go through the end sequence of the form. We'll start from snake creeps down. All right. I'll do it in two directions here. One's facing you, one's facing away from you. All right. Well, snake creeps down. Seven star. Ride the tiger. This is the lotus kick coming. There's many ways to do that one. We can talk about that one in the future. Bend bow, shoot tiger. And that'll transition out to the very end of the sequence. Okay, we're gonna do that one time facing, we're gonna go this direction here, okay? Single whip, snake creeps down. Turn the foot, seven star. 7 points. Riding the tiger. Here's my lotus kick. Bend bow, shoot tiger. And come back. Okay? All right. Hopefully that gave you enough to sort of figure out some of the angles, some of the positioning. All right, like I said, take it back to fundamentals, take it back to basics. The stuff you see in the third section is really pulling together a lot of the stuff that you should be working on at the beginning of your sequences. Okay, so things like tip of the head extension, sinking through that tailbone, keeping that line really straight, understanding how to relax through your movement, all right, especially if I want to move forward, all right. How am I relaxing through my motion, all right? Any of this sort of rocking or tipping or tendency to sit on the hip to support yourself, any of those sorts of things are going to just make this all so much more difficult, okay? Understanding where your facing is at, all right? Your hips determine your facing, okay? Your twist will help you determine how your line of attack should come through. This utilizes a spiral, okay? We didn't really get into exactly spiraling through the feet, through the ground, all those components of the spiral. So there's a lot of stuff that I didn't talk about that you can also practice in to develop your ability before you jump into trying to do one of these movements. This is probably one of the hardest movements to find your balance on. Not that you can't stand there, but if someone applies force to you, finding that balance point can be really challenging because you have to transfer force through a curve or through a spiral, all right? So hopefully that answers your questions a little bit. Like I said, go back, practice those fundamentals, say it again and again and again, all right? Because they are so, so important, all right? That's gonna be it for us. I hope everybody had a great holiday, and I hope that we all have a fantastic new year. All right.